Welcome to another edition of Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. We're coming to the end of 2020, entering the holiday season, and people would like to kind of focus on good in a challenging year. And I think something that we can all agree on was a successful virtual Engineering Excellence Awards Gala, which we put on earlier this month. And the Grand Conceptor, the top award, showcasing really the nation's best example of engineering excellence for 2020, came down to a really significant environmental project, the Copperhill Watershed Restoration Project in Ducktown, Tennessee. They won the Grand Conceptor Award. The firm responsible was Barge Design Solutions out of Nashville. And the project was really a 20-year restoration project that transformed 50 square miles of severely damaged terrain. That was a combination of things, really. It was impacted by more than a century of logging, mining, and acid production. And they turned into a lush, clean, natural wonderland that people could use. The restoration efforts, included disposal of mining waste, construction of clean water diversions, reestablishment of natural, healthy communities of aquatic insects, and the construction of new contaminant filtering wetlands. Before the restoration, the contaminated site, and get this, was one of only 2 man-made features that astronauts could identify from space, along with the Great Wall of China. The project is a testament to the dedication, the commitment, and the value that engineering design professionals bring to their work, and it is a worthy recipient of the Grand Conceptor title. And I am pleased today to be welcomed on the program by 2 professionals from Barge Design Solutions to talk about the project: Carrie Stokes, Senior Vice President and Director of Site Solutions, and Tom McComb, Senior Geologist and Senior Project Manager. First, welcome to the show, both of you, and congratulations on an outstanding achievement.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having us.
So this is something that we haven't really done before. It was the first time we've ever done the award show virtually, and amazingly, we were still able to keep the grand award, the top award, a secret. I guess the first thing is just how was that reveal at the end of the show? My understanding is we had all of the potential winners kind of in holding, and then when it was announced, then we went live to over Zoom. When you realized, oh my God, we won, what was the first thought? Carrie, if we could start with you, and then Tom.
Sure. Yeah, it was definitely a surprise. So we had no hint before, so it was definitely a surprise and a shock, a little bit overwhelming. Both Tom and myself have been working on this project for decades, so there was this buildup of anticipation. And honestly, after seeing all the other wonderful projects, we certainly feel very lucky to be in that category. But yeah, it was just kind of shock. And then our CEO, Bob Higgins, was the one that actually kind of did the acceptance. And I was thinking, thank goodness, because I'm a little choked up, right now.
Understandably so. Tom, what was your reaction?
Well, I was watching it from my house, since it was a remote, and my wife and my kids were watching too, which was fun because they normally wouldn't be involved in something like this. And, I told them there was a chance, we were in the running, but I had no idea how it was going to turn out. So when they flipped to the big announcement, they showed video, which I didn't recognize because it was your video, not ours.
Uh-huh.
And I was like, oh, that's it. We didn't win. And then I realized they were talking about East Tennessee. And I was like, oh, yeah, that was us. So it was certainly, I agree with Carrie. We saw these other great engineering projects, and it really makes you proud that with the competition as strong as it was, that we're still able to have this big award, and we're thrilled to get it.
Well, it really was deserving. And, when we met as a team and we were talking about, the potential winners, Barge Design Solutions, you're out of Tennessee. It's tell us, for those of us who aren't directly familiar with the firm, tell us a little bit more about it and kind of what your specialty is and some of the other work that you do in addition to this project.
Okay, of course. Yeah, thank you. So Barge Design Solutions is an employee-owned firm. We were founded in 1955, really with a foundation in civil engineering. Mm-hmm. Today, we are a multidiscipline firm. So we have engineering, architecture, landscape architecture, planning, environmental scientists, geomatic staff, and information managers as well. So we have a very diverse skill set. We have about 450 employees spread across 16 offices, primarily in the Southeast, but we also have offices in Ohio and Texas as well. So, you know, from our standpoint, we are a really kind of good sized firm in that we are still, we know each other. We know each other across our offices. We do a lot of collaboration, but so we can be comprehensive in our services, but really pretty flexible and agile to our clients. So we find that really a good fit for the services that we provide. And we do work really with a variety of client types, really, you know, everything from federal and state to municipal and industrial and commercial, and really kind of work in all markets as well. And so I've been at Barge over 20 years, and that's, I mean, part of the reason that I have stayed is just that diversity and challenge. And we are also a great place. We're certified great place to work. So we have a very focus on the employee experience.
That's great. That's great. And Tom, how long have you been with Barge?
I started in 2001. The Copperhill project started in the 1st of February 2001, and I was hired 2 weeks later.
Wow.
So I actually came to Barge because I knew about this project that was starting up and I wanted to be involved.
Wow, really? So you've seen it pretty much, you know, both of you from beginning to end.
Yes.
So what, you know, this was, you know, I guess this kind of covered Tom, but this really attracted you to the firm. Carrie, how did you get involved with this project?
So I was a fairly recent graduate and we started some kind of initial investigations in the late 90s, kind of early 2000, and was engaged in that. And so I kind of feel like as the project has moved forward, my career has grown. So, you know, I've done everything at that site from, you know, sample collection, some of the engineering design, managed some tasks, and then my career's taken a little bit different path, but have always stayed engaged. Yeah, I was there from the beginning. I kind of remember this initial meeting setting at the old, you know, large conference table at our old office, and who was there and how this got started, and thinking about, wow, this is really cool. But I have a lot to learn about mining and all of the different, you know, impacts. And so it was just really interesting and intriguing. So I kind of started from the beginning, and then as Tom said, it really piqued his interest, and then he wanted to come join Barge because of that project. It's kind of a once in a lifetime project.
It seems like it pulled in so many different disciplines, and there are so many challenges on the site that it was kind of it must have offered an opportunity for everyone to kind of pitch in and lend their experience. So the scope of this thing, I think that, you know, we have a video which is going to be attached to the show notes here. For those of you who saw the awards show, you saw the announcement video of the project, but images are hard to completely translate the size and scope of this project. Can you help our listeners kind of have a better idea of everything that, just the size and everything that kind of went into this, because it's a massive area. You're talking about a 50 square mile site with multiple challenges.
You know, when I had been to the site before, you know, I was in school in the area, and like a lot of people, we would take field trips to the Copper Basin. But you got to realize the Copper Basin is sitting in the Blue Ridge Mountains, which is a lot of national forest. It's a very a beautiful area, you know, heavily vegetated, a lot of hardwood trees. But you would crest the hill coming in the Copper Basin, and everything would end. You know, it would be like you just changed states or maybe planets. And you know,
it looked like a moonscape.
It did. Maybe a little more Mars. This was pretty red. So, but it was just such a shock. You know, if you didn't expect it, because it would just be, you know, like it didn't belong there basically. And you know, to get a handle on this, when you do environmental work and assessment, cleanup, remediation, a lot of the times you're dealing with a site that's had a spill you're cleaning up, or an industrial site with, one set of components that you're dealing with, a very fixed history. Where this site, the problem started in 1850s and didn't get any better as time went on. And and then, the large area, again, you're not looking at acres, you're looking at square miles. You're looking at 3 different watersheds, including the Ocoee River, which is a big recreational river in Tennessee. And you had to change the whole way you do your job. This was not a cookie cutter project. Everything we did, you'd have to go, well, no, I know how to assess a site, but now I'm looking at, several square miles to assess. And how do you get a good picture that fits the scale of a project? And, I actually learned quite a bit about the history of the basin, because as time changed, not only the location of some of the mines and the processing facilities moved over the years, but the contaminants they had left behind changed over the years, and the concentrations, particularly of metals, changed over the years. So you may be out in what was a kind of a pine forest when I was there doing some of the assessment work, and then realize that there's ruins around you. And then you had to, kind of go back and figure out what was going on. And again, we weren't cleaning this up with a shovel and a spoon. We were cleaning this site up on large scale, more like reclamation projects, and not like a typical bucket by bucket remediation project. So it changed how you would collect data, how you interpreted data. And the other thing that made it really unique is that, again, the Copper Basin is a mining district. And so by definition, it is not like its neighbors. This area had natural concentrations of metals and sulfur in it. And simple things like, what's background? Normally on a site, background is just like across the street or, a little bit upstream. But if the streams weren't in this basin, they weren't background, because this basin is different from the next basin over. But due to the scale of mining, a lot of the streams were impacted from top to bottom. So we had to do a lot of work just to figure out what was okay, what's natural out in a basin like that and what's not. And I think that's where we, with the regulators, came with the approach of using the macroinvertebrates as our cleanup standard instead of a fixed number, because they came to the realization that if the macroinvertebrates had essentially evolved or acclimated to those conditions, then that was okay. A copper number that's good in Central Tennessee may never be even approachable in the mining basin. So that was a real challenge for us. And the last thing that we had to watch, at least I thought it was real challenging to get with the clients too, was how clean is clean. Because if you're if you're doing soil cleanup, you just take a jar of soil, send it to the lab, and the number's good, you're finished. But on a site like this, you weren't going to get down to non-detect. It's particularly in metals. And so how much material did you take? Where did, how much did you leave behind? And we found a lot of it was just like dealing with how quickly it would impact the streams. We would start focusing more on the waste that were in and along the streams. And then when you're done, the site, it is still changing. The water chemistry is still changing, and it will change. It'll take years for this thing to equilibrate to all the cleanup we've done. So, a lot of times the regulators like, oh, you need to keep going. There's something else out there. And we're like, well, what? Can't we wait just a little bit longer? We're not saying we're done, but we just don't know yet, And everybody used to this big lag between the remedial actions and the full recovery was one of our real things we had to watch out for as we would work across the basin.
So Carrie, I guess this, in the way Tom explains it, it's almost creating a situation where you can sustain an ecosystem that's there. And then also, I would imagine, make it safe for, people to go in and use the area. So you have to make sure that the levels are safe for people to be there. So is this more, this seems almost like it's not so much it's that looking at this as a systems approach, right? As we are restoring an ecological system instead of just remediating a parcel of land. How did that inform the way that you approached the challenge, and the way that maybe your teams work together?
Well, that was something kind of at the beginning that we really had to kind of get everybody on the team on the same page. And we really did have a very collaborative team and wouldn't have been able to work through the process without them. So that included our client, Glen Springs Holdings, the regulators, Tennessee Department of Environment Conservation, and then EPA Region 4. And then we also had other kind of partners along the way. But that really kind of we had to get agreement on that framework, and kind of moving forward that way. And we did apply the adaptive management approach to this project. So we knew, there's some obvious kind of low hanging fruit. Like, why would we not take care of that pile sitting next to the stream? Yes, we will do that. Tom was describing all of these things work together. Sometimes you could predict what was going to happen and others times not. And so we really worked through the system in phases, but that was the key to what you just said. That was a system. Things were working together, sometimes, in synergy in a good way, other times against each other. And you had to figure all that out.
Yeah.
But from an engineering challenge, it was really, exciting because you had this, one project, one site that, that had a little bit of everything. There were the human health hazards of the actual mine collapses, some of the contaminants that you wanted to make sure and, address for the community, and then the impacted streams. And so there was kind of something for everyone, as you said. And we really engaged all disciplines, across our firm and other,
Yeah. I mean, I know that, and Tom, you mentioned the fact that, you were dealing with the fact that you could be at a site, part of the site, and then all of a sudden you realize you're at an abandoned or shuttered mining facility, but you weren't taking kind of the bucket approach, but more of the remediation approach. Did you employ any archaeologists or anyone, historical experts in the area to figure out if there's anything to preserve or anything, that you came across that needed to be, moved or saved for Tennessee, state or local entities?
Sure. So luckily, the mining had stopped in 1987, and it was the industry in that region. It employed a lot of people for generations. And so there was a lot of information. There were still mining engineers in the community who were there, and other people that Glen Springs could reach out and touch to talk about learning the history. They had a lot of the files that they had secured from the companies, a lot of historical files, as built, from the 1920s, that kind of thing. And so, and there's also a copper basin mining museum, and they were extremely beneficial. And as we would remediate areas, we would have them involved to look at what the historical significance is of certain areas, and what really needed to remain in place compared to some features which were maybe buried or even extant.
Yeah,
they were waste too, and they got pushed into the waste piles. But the whole time that the state was involved, the local historic community was involved. So this project was very inclusive with our neighbors, and making sure we respect the community too.
And that's a really good point, because one of the things that we talk about at ACEC, and I guess our kind of extended education and the work that we do with professional development, it's that it's not just the hard skills of engineering, the math, the sciences, geology, but it's also that, I guess, the softer skills of working with the community, of establishing those relationships with regulators, with the landowners and the community surrounding it. And this seems like a good example that if you can carry to your earlier point, that if you're able to get that kind of synergy started early, and you're able to get that buy-in, especially on a project this large, it really helps set the stage for success.
Yes, I definitely think that was a success factor. And there were several challenges from the engineering perspective. Waste handling and management was an issue. As you can imagine, there was quite a bit on site. It really wasn't feasible to take it off site to a landfill, or so we did some very unique things of disposing non-hazardous materials in a mine collapse, using an open pit for a treatment plant. And all of those things happened because we kind of had that collaborative relationship and really got perspective, several different perspectives. And certainly a key part was how the community would receive it as well. I mean, we wanted to be very mindful about what we needed to do to take care of and address the issues, but also client did a wonderful job of having several kind of pretty frequent like community meetings, bringing them into their office, showing them the projects that was going on, giving people an update. And I think that went a long way because there's a lot of pride in that community kind of the mining history. So it was really important to keep that open dialogue.
Yeah. Respect the history, but make sure that at the end of the day, they're left with something even better. Yes. Which kind of ties into the value. We always like to talk about the value that engineers bring to their communities. This, without question, is a project that brought immense value to Tennessee. Can you kind of explain a little bit more about that? What do you think is the biggest bang for the buck or biggest value, right? That was delivered.
Well, I'm sure Carrie and I may have different things that we see and take pride in. But at the beginning of this project, the Ocoee River is the main receiving stream. It's a very large river, and it's a whitewater recreation river. And when we started this project, there was so many metals coming into the Ocoee River from the Copper Basin that it left an orange bathtub ring when the water levels would change. I mean, it was a pretty much, even though it was a river, it had very impacted fish communities. The Olympics were on the Ocoee River in 1996, and we were talking to the Forest Service, and they did a fish survey, and they were saying, well, we see impacted species list. We only saw 2 fish. There was nothing in the river. And one of the first things that we did as part of protecting the Ocoee is these water treatment plants went up to prevent impacted water from hitting the Ocoee starting back in the early 2000s. And so the Ocoee River changed colors. It went from this rusty orange river back to, really pretty, whatever color you think rivers are, blue, green stream. And
natural color.
Yeah, and the streams in Georgia that feed the Ocoee, the Toccoa, was a trout stream, and the trout would come to the Tennessee state line and perish. Yeah. And now they're, it's neat. You go to the local gas stations and they're selling bait. They're, people are fishing in the stream that before there wasn't anything alive in it.
Yeah.
And you're seeing, more people tubing, and the rafting business is doing great. But it really makes you feel good. I was there yesterday, honestly. I just came back today, and that all the river is controlled by TVA, Tennessee Valley Authority, but they had all the gates open and the river was flowing very well. And it was a beautiful stream. The white water looked great. And there's schools of multiple species of fish in there. And it really makes you feel good. You're like, I had a part of this. I mean, how many times can you drive along a big stretch of river and say, I made this river better. And I think that's something that everybody who comes to visit the Copper Basin benefits from. A lot of them don't even know how bad it was at this point, but they do benefit because it's such a beautiful resource, and a lot of people use it for recreation. And it's just great. That's all you say.
And Carrie, what do you think is the biggest value?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely the benefit to the local community, kind of where they live and work and every day, but also really help the local economy. So, that was much needed when they transitioned, when the mine shut down. People were going to the Ocoee, but they were coming, doing that rafting, and then leaving. Now the intention is come and stay, go and hike. I know they're looking at putting trails throughout the site, in certain areas, maybe having interpreted areas. But that's kind of one of the things that we focus on Barge. We want to unleash the potential of our staff, our clients, and our communities. And I think that's, that's what we see with the success of this project.
Absolutely. I mean, It's the environmental side, which is without doubt impressive, but then it's also that revitalization of a community that was so dependent on an industry, and having that industry go away. There's so many communities across the country that were very dependent on one manufacturing or industrial industry that goes away and they don't recover. And this presents an opportunity for that area to become more of a
Yeah.
outdoors area to attract people.
Yes.
To stay.
It's a destination. It's
Yeah,
becoming a destination.
you're transforming the land, you're transforming the economy. So those are, you don't get more value than that. So I mean, really, it's something, because I've been talking, in the process of the EEA, we talked to a couple of other firms that were doing large projects, bridges and things like that. And I think that, Tom, the point you raised, driving by the area and you're looking out and you're realizing, I had a hand, or, in turning this into what you see here, is that idea is like, I asked someone who was like, when they build a bridge that like defines a skyscape, or the landscape of a city, I'm like, how does it feel to build something that people will now identify? You design something that people will now identify with a city. Guess it's that same thing. You've created something that you've turned essentially a Marscape, let's say, because of the red color, into something that's verdant and back and alive. I mean, from a professional perspective, Carrie and Tom, what does that mean to you as an engineer and as a geologist?
Well, as an engineer, I mean, it's a little cliche, but, a lot of people say, well, I get in the profession of engineering because I want to make a difference. Mm-hmm. Not everyone is lucky enough to have an opportunity to kind of work through, have such a great team, and then kind of witness, this truly transformation. And so it's really, it makes me very proud, just my contribution, our firms, and the teamwork. I mean, that's why we do this, it's.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And Tom, how about you?
The thing that brings me, this is like the cornerstone project of my whole career. I've been in the environmental business, my entire career, and to be able to look at and point to my, show my children or people I know of this one project in particular and how great it turned out, and you've had this big hand in it. And the other thing that that always strikes me is that if we weren't involved with this, if Glen Springs and TDEC and EPA didn't work so well together, this site would look like the way it did for hundreds of years. Mm-hmm. These sites don't clean themselves up. I watch for these kind of things now after working on Copperhill, and there's Roman mines in England that still have orange water flowing out of them. Mm-hmm. They've got to be 1,000 years old or more. And here's Copper Basin, and we transformed it in 20 years. It just makes you, it's really something to be proud of.
Well, you have a business pitch for some international work then.
That too, yeah.
That's
if
right.
They want us there, just let me know. We can get our way.
So the project's great. The award is something which we, of course, do every year and once a year. But what does the Grand Conceptor Award mean for the firm? I mean, from a firm perspective, what does this mean to the professionals at Barge?
I think it means a lot, and I'm really proud of the recognition, when we were kind of listening to all of the other firms and projects and just such great submittals. But, for a Barge firm, 400-person firm, we're not tens of thousands of staff, but we're certainly operating at that level, and we have quality professionals bringing to bear very unique and innovative ideas. And so that's what I'm really glad is that the staff gets recognized, the firm, for that commitment. And, Tom is probably too nice to say, but, staff really put forth a commitment, and they give of themselves and they make sacrifices. And I don't know if he knows exactly how many birthdays or anniversaries that he spent at the site, but it's quite a bit. Mm-hmm. I do think, it is just an acknowledgement of, we go all in. And so we take this, we get very into it and want to see it through. And so it's nice just on a staff level, but I also think kind of elevating the brand of Barge. I mean, maybe in fact, kind of introducing our firm to others, across the country who haven't heard of us. And so that for us, that's great. We like to make connections and increase our network.
Absolutely. And Tom?
Oh, you're going to ask me that too?
Yeah,
huh?
why not? Why not? Equal opportunity here.
Great job.
Yeah.
No, it does. I've you all had interviews with our congressman, and they're talking about the project we're working on. It's the recognition in our region, and maybe hopefully across the country, that we're here. We can and will do these great jobs, and that's invaluable. And our client is taking a lot of pride in this award too, and that makes you feel good because we're working for them. As Carrie mentioned, this is an award that really is from all the work of everybody's worked on this. And since we did work as a team, that includes a lot of our employees and subcontractors and the regulators. It took a special mixture of people to get this project done as quickly as it did. And it was a risk for our client to do it this way. I mean, we did this adaptive management approach that hadn't been done before, and they're willing. Because, honestly, some of the things we tried didn't work as well as you'd like. And that's the adaptive part. You live and learn, right? And so it just makes you proud that everything that is recognized, and we can share this recognition with our clients and the other people we work with on the project.
Well, it is again, a fantastic project. And, it's a good way of ending, I think, a challenging year is to look at an accomplishment of this type. And, once again, it is the Copperhill Watershed Restoration Project. You can find information about the project on our website under awards, and the EEA Awards. We'll have the video that we showed at the awards gala on the show notes of this episode. To find Barge Design online, you go to www.bargedesign.com, and the same for Twitter at Barge Design. And we really appreciate your time, and all the best into the new year, and congratulations again.
Well, thank you, Jeff.
Yeah, thank you very much. It certainly was the highlight of our 2020. So
that's right.
Well, again, this has been an episode of Engineering Influence, a podcast from the American Council of Engineering Companies. Happy holidays and a happy new year, and we will see you in 2021.